Wherever he walked, empires were either built or drowned in blood. To many, he didn't seem human. It was as if fate itself had taken up a sword and begun to march. With every step, cities vanished. Even the spirits of the greatest rulers trembled at the sound of his name. Because this name, it was carved with punishment. And even today, it is whispered in fear. Tamerlane. Fact 1. What was Timur's real name? Most people know him as Tamerlane or Emir Timur, but his full birth name was Timur ibn Taraga Ibarlis. The name Timur means iron in Turkic-Mongol languages. And just like iron, he was strong, unbending, and relentless. It's no surprise that history remembers him as the iron-willed conqueror. He was born into the Barlas tribe, a group of Turkic-Mongol origin that had settled in Central Asia after the time of Genghis Khan. His father, Taragai, was a respected noble, but not a ruler. Timur rose from a minor chieftain's family to become a ruler who would make entire regions tremble, from Central Asia to the Middle East and India. One of the most fascinating details about him is the origin of his famous nickname, Timuri Lang, which means Timur the Lame in Persian. As a young man, he was wounded in battle, and the injury left his right leg crippled for life. From then on, he walked with a limp, but that limp didn't slow him down. It became part of his legend. To his enemies, he was terrifying. To his followers, he was unstoppable. Just imagine it, a man whose name means iron, whose body is marked by pain, but whose soul burns with the dream of conquering the world. That was Tamerlane, and history would never forget him. Fact 2. How did Timur become lame? Timur is remembered as one of history's greatest conquerors, but few know the dark and bloody story behind the limp that earned him the name Timur the Lame. It happened during his early years, around 1362 or 1363, long before the world knew his name. At the time, Timur was just a rising warlord, caught in the chaos of tribal wars across Central Asia. Ambition burned in him, but so did danger. According to the most widely accepted account, Timur was fighting against Turkmen tribes in the Sistan and Khorasan regions. It was in one of these brutal battles that he was struck by an arrow to the leg. But that wasn't all. He was also badly wounded in his right hand, leaving it permanently damaged. From that day forward, he could no longer walk or fight like before. His right leg dragged behind him. His right hand had lost its full strength. Yet somehow, this broken young warrior didn't stop. Instead, he turned his injuries into a mark of destiny. Enemies mocked him, but soon they would fear him, because the man who limped into battle would one day make the world kneel. Fact 3, he fought in the name of religion, but his true aim was conquest. Timur was a deeply religious man. He read the Quran, consulted scholars, and built mosques. But there was something else about him that set him apart. He knew how to blend faith with politics. For Timur, statecraft and conquest were far more important than religious devotion. And if you look at his military campaigns, one thing stands out immediately. Many of his wars were fought under the banner of jihad. He often presented his invasions as efforts to spread Islam and serve God. But here's where things get complicated. Timur's true purpose was not just to spread religion. It was to expand his empire and strengthen his power. Religion for him was simply a tool, a weapon to justify his ambitions and provide legitimacy for his plans. Throughout history, many rulers have invoked religion to gain support and power, and Timur was no exception. During his time, Islam was already a powerful force, and if you could wage a jihad, you could gain the support of the Muslim world. Timur knew this well. In fact, he even declared jihad against other Muslim states. But this was not about faith. It was about political power and military dominance. Take his Baghdad campaign, for example. Thousands of Muslims were killed, cities were devastated. Yet the entire campaign was still labeled a jihad. Many historians agree. For Timur, religion was just a means to an end. His true goal was simple: to conquer, to grow his empire, and to crush his enemies. Although he presented himself as the defender of Islam, his actions were often driven by cold, hard political realism. Fact 4, he covered cities with skulls. When the name Timur is mentioned, one word often comes to mind: horror. He wasn't just a master of the sword, he was a master of fear. Timur didn't just want to win battles, he wanted to crush the spirit of his enemies, prevent future uprisings, and immortalize his name in the most chilling way possible. And he did this with some of the most terrifying methods imaginable. One of his darkest tactics? The skull pyramids. Yes, you heard that right. After capturing a city, Timur would have the heads of rebellious or resisting civilians cut off, and then he would have them stacked into massive pyramids, walls of skulls. This gruesome spectacle struck fear into the hearts of anyone who heard of it. His brutal reputation spread like wildfire throughout the Muslim world and Asia. In fact, entire cities would surrender before his army even arrived, knowing that the alternative was unimaginable. But for Timur, this wasn't just cruelty, it was strategy. He understood that fear was sometimes a stronger weapon than any blade. And it worked. Fact 5. He was not actually a descendant of Genghis Khan. The truth is, Tamerlane, Timur, was never a blood relative of Genghis Khan. In the past, in Central Asia, being a descendant of Genghis Khan was considered a significant advantage when it came to power. People believed that only those from Genghis's bloodline could become the Khan. Tamerlane solved this problem with intelligence and political strategy. He portrayed himself as the protector of Genghis Khan's ideals. Moreover, he married a woman named Sarah Malik, who was from Genghis Khan's lineage, thus legally linking himself to the Genghisid family. This marriage strengthened Tamerlane's political position and gave him the appearance of legitimate rule. Tamerlane never referred to himself as Khan because he knew this title was reserved for Genghis Khan's descendants. Instead, he chose the title of Emir, meaning commander or leader. Even though he effectively ruled an empire, he respected the Genghisid leadership and used it to his political advantage. Therefore, Tamerlane ruled not through blood, but through intelligence. He managed to conquer half the world without merging his lineage with Genghis Khan's. Fact 6. He conquered 40% of the world. Tamerlane was not just a powerful military leader, he was one of the greatest military strategists in history. The empire he led reached an extraordinary scale, one rarely seen in history. According to researchers, Tamerlane's empire covered areas inhabited by nearly 40% of the world's population at the time. What does this mean? It means that, during his era, 4 out of every 10 people lived either directly or indirectly under Tamerlane's rule. This figure even surpasses some of Genghis Khan's conquests, cementing Tamerlane as one of the most successful conquerors in history. His empire spanned from Central Asia to Iran, Iraq, Azerbaijan, the Caucasus, Anatolia, most of Turkey, parts of Syria, Afghanistan, Pakistan, northern India, the Russian steppes. Fact 7. Tamerlane turned Samarkand into the Pearl of the East. Tamerlane is not only remembered for his wars and conquests, but also for one of his greatest legacies, transforming the city of Samarkand into the most brilliant jewel of the East. For Tamerlane, Samarkand was not just a city, it was the imperial capital of his dreams, a center of culture and learning. He brought engineers, scholars, craftsmen, and architects from the countries he conquered and settled them in Samarkand. His vision was clear: I will build the most beautiful city in the world. To achieve this, he commissioned amazing architectural works in the city. Tamerlane adorned Samarkand with blue domes, grand madrasas, mosques, and palaces. He decorated it so extensively that over time, people began calling it the Pearl of the East, or even the Paris of the Islamic world. One of the most magnificent monuments built during his reign was the Bibi Kanim Mosque. This mosque was constructed in honor of Tamerlane's beloved wife, Bibi Kanim, and was considered one of the largest mosques in the world at the time. The mosque's dome was so immense that people remarked that it looked like a gate to the sky when seen from a distance. Even after Tamerlane's death, Samarkand continued to thrive under his heirs. His son and grandson, especially Ulugh Beg, turned the city into a hub for science and astronomy. The observatory built by Ulugh Beg became one of the most advanced astronomical centers in the world for centuries. Fact 8. Tamerlane had planned to conquer Istanbul. Yes, this is perhaps a lesser-known fact. Tamerlane had set his sights on one of the most symbolic cities in history, Istanbul, the heart of the Byzantine Empire. At that time, Tamerlane had already conquered Central Asia, Iran, India, and the lands of Anatolia. After defeating Ottoman Sultan Bayezid at the Battle of Ankara in 1402, all of Anatolia had fallen under his control. This meant that he was within striking distance of Istanbul. For Tamerlane, Istanbul was not just any city, it was one of the world's most iconic strongholds, the capital of empires, and a sacred city built upon the legacy of Jesus Christ and Prophet Muhammad. To conquer such a city would have been an immortal mark in history for Tamerlane. Before going into battle with Sultan Bayezid, Tamerlane had already established diplomatic contacts with the Byzantines. Some sources even claim that Byzantine Emperor Manuel II Palaiologos tried to form an alliance with Tamerlane in order to protect himself from Ottoman pressure. Tamerlane's name was already feared in Constantinople. After the Battle of Ankara, Tamerlane's path was wide open. He now controlled Anatolia. The Ottoman army had been defeated, Bayezid had been captured, and the empire was in chaos. This left Istanbul vulnerable. Had Tamerlane attacked, it's possible that Istanbul could have fallen 50 years before its eventual conquest by the Ottomans in 1453. However, history took a different turn. Instead of marching on Byzantium, Tamerlane chose to return to Central Asia as he was preparing for war with China's Ming dynasty. His plan was even more ambitious, to conquer China and make his empire the largest in the world. Unfortunately, this campaign never came to fruition. In 1405, as Tamerlane was advancing toward China, he passed away. With his death, many of his plans, including the conquest of Istanbul, were buried along with him. Fact 9, his name is still spoken with fear and respect. Times have changed. Empires have fallen. Fortresses have crumbled. But one name remains even more than 600 years after his death, still remembered with either fear or admiration. That name is Tamerlane. So why is this? How can the name of one man stay alive for so long? Because Tamerlane was not just a ruler, he was a force that stamped his mark on history. He was like a black storm in his era, leaving a trail wherever he went and changing the course of history. His military campaigns destroyed empires and led to the rise of new powers. Take, for example, his victory at the Battle of Ankara, where he captured Ottoman Sultan Bayezid I. This wasn't just a win. It sparked 11 years of civil war within the Ottoman Empire. Imagine, one man changed the trajectory of an entire empire. Tamerlane's name continued to invoke fear even after his death. In 1941, Soviet archaeologists opened his tomb. On the gravestone, the inscription read, "Whoever opens my tomb will unleash a greater disaster than mine." They didn't pay much attention to the warning, and just 3 days later, Adolf Hitler launched his invasion of the Soviet Union, an event known as Operation Barbarossa, one of the bloodiest chapters of World War II. Many believe this was the fulfillment of Tamerlane's curse. However, Tamerlane's name is not just remembered with fear, it is also revered with respect. His legacy as a military genius and empire builder ensures that his name will forever be etched into the annals of history. Fact 10, his genetics were unexpected. Tamerlane has been written about and discussed for decades. But after all the conquests, all the politics, and all the bloodshed, when his true genetic identity was studied, it completely astonished historians and geneticists. In the late 1990s and early 2000s, Tamerlane's body was exhumed from the Gurumir Mausoleum in Samarkand for modern scientific analysis. The goal was to determine which genetic group, race, and ethnic background he belonged to. Most people had assumed he was either Turkmen or Mongol. Some believed he was purely Turkish, while others thought he had a mixture of Persian ancestry. But the results said something completely different. Tamerlane's paternal lineage was genetically linked to European ancestry. What does this mean? It means Tamerlane's genetic heritage wasn't just from Central Asia. It carried traces from a much broader geographical area, including Europe, the Near East, and possibly even the Caucasus. This result shows that he was a multi-ethnic figure, both culturally and genetically. On his mother's side, Tamerlane is believed to have descended from Turkic and Mongol bloodlines, proving that he was the symbol of an era that united the largest empires of his time. Tamerlane did not remain confined to history books. He wrote his legacy with blood through time. If you recognize this name now, it's because his mark hasn't faded. If you enjoyed this mysterious journey, hit that like button, and if you want to hear more stories like this, subscribe, because we've only just begun to uncover the real secrets.